Big news. The almanac is officially back. The most exhaustive and comprehensive guide to the 2023-24 college basketball season is available for pre-order now. If you go to cbbalmanac.com, link is in the description below, you can pre-order for just $15.99 or 20% off the sticker price. The format is going to be a little bit different this season. Instead of an 850-page PDF, you'll be getting access to the full site with league-by-league PDFs available for download. The preview will be live on September 20th, so you have until then to be able to get your pre-orders in. So for insight for all 362 Division I teams from their head coaches and the experts that cover them, make sure you hit that link.
It's another edition of the Field of 68 Offseason Grades. And for this one, Rob Dolster and I, John Fanta, are heading to New York, to the Cuse, the Syracuse Orange. The Orange, for the first time in 48 years, when they open the season in November, they will have somebody else in the permanent role on the sidelines, walking out of the tunnel. It'll always be the Carrier Dome. Walking out of the tunnel and leading Syracuse basketball. And that is Adrian Red Autry taking over for Jim Boeheim. So before we talk about anything else with Syracuse and their roster intricacies and all of that, we got to talk about this transition because, Rob, it is a seismic one in college basketball because nobody was more synonymous with a program over the last 5 decades than Jim Boeheim was with Syracuse. And now it'll be Red Autry. Do you think that Red Autry can take this program into a new wave? And how would you reflect on the transition here from a Jim Boeheim to Adrian Autry?
In terms of the transition, I think it went about as well as you could have hoped, considering the fact that, one, I don't know that Jim Boeheim necessarily wanted to hang it up. I think he wanted to get a couple more years in. And two, when you have a guy that is as, what's the friendly way to say this, curmudgeonly as Jim Boeheim is, like, he could have raised the stink and made this be a big issue, but it seems like he is happy that Red got the job. It seems like he is supportive, and it seems like he's going to throw his significant weight in that community behind this program and continue pulling in the right direction. So I think that is something that is very, very, very important. And I think we'll see why as Bob Huggins and West Virginia, that situation continues to play out. So in terms of what I would expect from them, I think what's going to be fascinating is seeing Syracuse step into a more modern era of the sport, right? I think that it's been very clear we're not going to see 2-3 zone all that much. I think it's something where we're going to see a little bit more of some modern concepts maybe played on the offensive end of the floor. But it's still something that I think is going to be new. And they lost some pieces this summer. They lost some guys to the transfer portal. Joe Girard, I don't know if that was one where it's necessarily a negative that he's gone, right? Like, I think that might have been one where it was kind of like a mutual parting of ways. But I do think that losing a guy in Jesse Edwards that averaged 14 points, 10 boards, 3 blocks, that's something that is going to hurt a little bit as you're looking to fill the void at the 5. We all know how important the 5 is in college basketball. But if you look at everything else, like, let's take away that they have 4 guys that are 7 foot on this roster. So, like, there's options at the 5. But if you look at everything else, I think it's promising. And I know you talked with Red this offseason for our Off the Carousel series, so I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this. But I think that just in theory, the combination of Judah Mintz, JJ Starling, and a healthy Chance Westry gives you like 3 potential NBA players at the 1, 2, 3 spot, all of whom are a little bit bigger, all of whom are a little bit more athletic, and all of whom can do a lot of different things with the ball in their hands. You know, I think JJ Starling is probably like the closest to a lead guard. I think Judah Mintz can kind of play on the ball, and I think Chance Westry's ability as like a complementary playmaker is just, you know, talking with the Auburn staff prior to last season, they thought that he was their most talented backcourt player. Now, he was injured, he was banged up, he didn't quite have the year that he wanted, but those 3 combined, like, I don't know how many, if they all hit their ceiling, I don't know how many teams are going to have a better perimeter trio than that group right there. Now, that's a big if, right? Like you need a healthy Chance Westry. You need JJ Starling to adjust to a new program. Well, I think he will. Both of those guys are going to be sophomores, but that is a very, very good 1, 2, 3. And I don't know how many teams can match it, not just in the ACC, but in college basketball, period, if they're at their best.
Here's the thing. The fact that when you look at that trio of JJ Starling, of Judah Mintz, and of Chance Westry, and you see that all of them are sophomores, and then you do a little bit of digging, and you understand that Judah Mintz, as a freshman, averaged 16 and 5 assists per game. So that means that he's accounting for roughly 30 of the team's points a game as a freshman. There are not those players don't grow on trees. And they don't typically stay around in college basketball if they're doing that in their freshman season.
Nope.
Red Autry was rejoicing, jumping for joy. And he said it on our Off the Carousel series. When he found out that Judah Mintz was not going to stay in the NBA draft, was going to come back to Syracuse and suit up for him for his sophomore season, that's the biggest win of this offseason, even bigger than what they brought in. And JJ Starling is a great addition and was highly sought after. And I'm really intrigued to see how Starling and Mintz work together. I think as a result of Westry and of Starling now joining a guy who has serious NBA upside, Starling does too. Like you just said, all three of them could be in that category. Syracuse, to me, is getting undervalued heading into this year. I think a lot of people don't have many expectations for them in the ACC. Let's face it, the ACC is a league where you can make a move up. The middle of that league is in an undefined territory, in my humble opinion. And when you've got NBA-level talent, especially at the guard positions, this is not a situation where Syracuse's best player is in the post. They've got options there. They also have some questions to answer there. They don't have questions to answer in their backcourt. They don't. Mintz is.
I mean, they do a little bit, right? Like we kind of need to see JJ Starling do it. You know, if you're an 11 points, like 2 assists, more turnovers and assists kind of a guy, like shoot 30% from 3, you can see the potential. There's a reason he was a 5-star, and we can see that, but you got to see him take that next step. Chance Westry, we know the talent's there, right? Like every staff that recruited him, the staff that coached him at Auburn, like they've seen the talent. You still got to transition that, right? Like my big thing is, will those guys, like, will they buy into playing together, right? Like, can you put them all on the floor at the same time, or will there be a little jealousy where like maybe one of them is like, Judah's averaging 18 and 6, like why can't I get some of that shine? Why does he have the ball in his hands the whole time, right? Like I think that's something that you're going to have to work through. Like ego management is going to be on every roster anyway. You know who is going to be a really interesting piece here? I think Benny Williams at that kind of like big wing spot. He shot it really well from 3 last year, didn't take a lot of attempts. Is a guy that that program and that fan base has been excited about for a few years. Can he step up into that like 4 big wing defensive stopper switchable piece? Can he play that role? What are we going to get out of someone like a Chris Bell, right? Someone like a Malik Brown? Like, will those guys be able to provide a little bit of depth? And I do think that you have options there. We didn't even mention the kid from Kansas, Kyle Cuff, right? Like we haven't even talked about him yet. So I think there's a lot of depth and a lot of options and a lot of weapons here, that if it all comes together, like there's a very real chance that this is a top 25 team this year. Is that crazy to say? It feels kind of crazy to say that.
Well, that is something that nobody is. I mean, you're on an island with that take. What I'll say is, they're closer to that than they are to being irrelevant and out of the equation. And I do believe that there's some people who have them in that category heading into this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't, for the record, I wouldn't have them preseason top 25.
No.
But I do think that there is like very real top 25 upside with this group. If it kind of, I mean, it's got to come together, right? Like you need the things to work out well. But I think that I can tell myself a story about how Syracuse ends up being a top 25 team that finishes 4th in the ACC this year. And it's not going to be something that is completely, it's not going to be like I'm on an acid trip, right? It's not
No,
going to be like I have Jeff Goodman brain.
yeah, well, nothing would be like that. Just contact the Atlantis Bahamas. Here's the thing. Rob, this team had a lot of guys last year. Like, in all fairness to Jim Boeheim, they did have several freshmen who played significant minutes. I mean, Malik Brown came into the program. He averaged 20 minutes a game. Chris Bell comes into this program. He's expected to be a guy. I mean, in the last 2 games of the season, he played 24 minutes and 28 minutes against Wake Forest. So these guys didn't come in and have much of a hey, we'll ease you in, period. They were young. I mean, what Judah Mintz did in 1 year of college basketball was terrific. It's hard to be a role guy as a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm really intrigued. So my X factor for this team is I'm looking at Chris Bell, and I see a guy that had a couple of games right between 13 and 15, 17 points where he found that he flashed what he could be for this program. He's 6'7", 180. All right. He's got some versatility, not a liability from what he can be defensively. We're going to find out more about who these guys are as individual defenders under Red Autry. That's for sure, because it's just going to look different. Remember, that's an adjustment for all the teams playing Syracuse too. I mean, I know they're used to playing teams that play man. It's just going to be weird seeing orange uniforms not in that 2-3 zone. But Chris Bell is the guy that I expect to take a leap. And Red Autry was encouraged by him as well. They've got a group of sophomores here that played more than usual freshman minutes collectively. And sometimes that's when a team is getting undervalued. It's not like when Red got the job that there was this massive exodus of players. Did they lose some pieces? Yes. Like you said earlier about Gerard, sometimes you lose players and there's an understanding that it might be best for the two parties to just not be together in the ensuing season. It's not Gerard's talented. He goes to Clemson. He'll help them. But I think that this team has a young core of players last year, very, very young. Can that sophomore class grow? And I'm pointing to a guy like Chris Bell at 6'7", average 7 points per game. Can he turn that 7 into a 12 or 13 and be a guy that they can create wrinkles against opposing defenses and use him as a weapon at 6'7" at his size? They've got guys who can create. The other key is what you referred to earlier. Do they have enough three-point shot making? Mm-hmm. Consistent three-point shot making. And there's a couple of guys that have to go from 29.5% per game. Can you grow that figure and be more consistent? And if that happens, then that top 25 vision, like you just said that they have 2 to 3 NBA potential guards, okay? They've got do they not have a top 4 backcourt in the ACC?
If it all comes together, for sure they do. If I would say the X factor is what happens at the 5 spot, right? Like okay. They have 4 guys that are between 6'11" and 7'4" in Florida State transfer Naheem McLeod. And I think there's also options where if things went a certain way, like maybe you can play one of those wings that you just mentioned as a small ball 5, go 5 out and just kind of say, fuck it. We're going to spread the floor. We're going to be switchable. We got 5 dudes out here that are 6'4" to 6'8". They can all guard any position. We're just going to get out there and play man. It's going to look very different than what it's been Syracuse the last couple of years. But I think that 5 spot is where, if you would have given me those 3 guards that we mentioned, with Benny Williams, with some of the young wings they got coming back, with Jesse Edwards at the 5, like I would say that this is a top 25 team in the preseason. I would have ranked them there, which is like kind of sucks that they lost Jesse Edwards, because that could have been a nice boon right there. But you need somebody kind of step up in that spot. I mean, look at what the other teams in the league got. You got Kyle Filipowski at Duke. You got Armando Bacot in North Carolina. You got Zach Edey out there. You got Donovan Clingan out there. You got Hunter Dickinson is still out there, right? And that's what you're competing with in college basketball now. Like, you need really good 5-men. And that's not to say that they don't have it, but that is to say that they don't have someone that has proven it yet. So we'll see. I do know that our guys, RC and TO, big ACC guys, you heard them raving about Naheem McLeod throughout the entire season. So we'll see if he can if it comes together for him. I think it's something that will be influential on the Syracuse season.
All right, give me a grade.
I'm going to give it a B-, and it feels a little bit harsh. But getting JJ Starling is good, right? Getting Judah Mintz back is really, really good. Getting Chance Westry is good. I think that you did miss on some guys that you went after in the portal. And the biggest thing is losing Jesse Edwards, right? Like, you lost the guy that I think could have been the difference between being a top 40-ish kind of, I think they can make the tournament team, to being a preseason top 25 team. But you got it hasn't been a bad offseason.
No.
So I'm giving them a B-.
When you consider some of the program constraints that they're under from an NIL perspective, those have been reported that Syracuse is trying to figure through that. And let's face it, there's another school in New York out of the Big East that has had no NIL issues. They do have a Hall of Famer as their head coach, who is the ultimate program leader, fundraiser, all that, and Rick Pitino. But Red Autry stepped into the job, and for the first time in 48 years, somebody new is coaching the program. And Jim Boeheim did it in his own way and had several years of greatness and terrific accomplishments that aren't even that far off of a couple of years ago. This is a program that has some things that they got to figure out in general with the NIL situation. So when you consider that, like Joe Girard and Jesse Edwards, those two guys averaged over 30 points per game. They're two quality players. Edwards being a guy I'm more bullish on than Girard. And losing Edwards is tough because he was going to be your dude. He was going to be your guy in the front court. Now you have a bit of a question there. But this backcourt, what they added, J.J. Starling's got all the upside. He's got all the upside. And, Rob, we can't get fully into what he went through as a freshman when the guy that recruited you is going to be done at the end of the year. Notre Dame was a dumpster fire this past year.
Yep.
Okay, so what will the change of scenery do? Chance Westry, you said what the Auburn staff said. Naheem McLeod is a guy that has, as we talked about, has upside as well. And Kyle Clough, who we didn't even bring up, at the end of the day, he started off at Kansas. They brought in quality additions. They missed on others. I give them a B+. I'll be a little bit more generous than you because I consider the current climate that they're in. And I consider the fact that Red Autry stepped into this job. And I don't think – I'm not sitting here right now in August saying, is Red really going to put his spin on the program? Make no mistake about it. He will. And if you don't think that, watch our Off the Carousel conversation and watch all those on our YouTube page as well. Subscribe, comment. We want to hear from you. The Syracuse Orange, a B- from Rob, a B+ from me. But the point is, the nation might be undervaluing the Orange. Don't do it. We told you first on the Field of 68.
Our partner for today's episode is Athletic Greens. I started taking AG1 during the college basketball season, and I loved the impact that it had on my energy levels. I'm a big coffee in the morning guy, but by the time that the afternoon would hit, I needed another boost. AG1 helped me tremendously, especially on those days when I didn't want to get up off the couch and go hit the gym. Their tagline is AG1 is comprehensive health and the power of habit in one. And man, that could not be more true. It's nearly impossible to eat and drink in a healthy manner in the month of February and the month of March when you are in my business. And AG1 was exactly the supplement that I needed to improve my gut health and cover my nutritional basis for the day. I've continued that into April. I've continued that into May, and I'm going to continue that the rest of the summer. All I have to do is mix a scoop of AG1 with some water or maybe add it into a smoothie, and I'm ready to go. Do it after lunch, and you'll be ready to go for the rest of the day. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/field68. That's field 68 FIELD, the number 6, the number 8, and you can get yours now. So check it out and help support this show. Thanks.